If you want to build the fastest PC you can without literally throwing money out of the window, well, this is the build for you, and it's a high-end build where you don't really have a budget, but you don't like to literally waste your money. And it's gonna be a Ryzen 7 9800X3D plus RTX 5080 PC build, which is gonna cost you under 3,000 bucks if you're very good with what you buy. And if you don't care about the aesthetics and you actually budget a bit more on your 5080 and do what I recommend in my do not buy an RTX 5080 video, you can probably stretch this to be under 2,500 bucks. Sounds crazy, but it's actually pretty doable without too much difficulty. So with that said, let's see what we're working with. Now the heart of our build is gonna be the Ryzen 7 9800X3D, and for that you're gonna just have to buy it new. But thankfully, stock level is now pretty good and you can buy it for a reasonable price. You can easily pair that CPU with a B650 motherboard if you are on a strict budget. But here we're going a little bit on the higher end. So we got an X870 Asus ROG Strix white, and it's the X870A from Asus. Now this motherboard is fully white, it's very good, and it has a lot of USBs. So if you're doing productivity also, maybe you're a streamer, this is gonna be good for you. This is also what I got for my personal system. And again, if you're buying a motherboard for AM5, I have a dedicated video basically telling you what I think about which motherboards to buy. B650 is gonna be overall the best choice, or if you need a bit of extra connectivity, X870 or X870E. Since we do have an X870 motherboard, we have Gen 5 drive support. And that's why we've got this crucial T700. Now this is what we call first Gen 5 drive, because now we have 14 gigabytes drive, and I made a dedicated video about those. The new ones are a lot better overall, but they're a lot more expensive. Since they are so much better, and since also Crucial refreshed their lineup, you can buy the older ones for a lot cheaper. And I think you should. If you do any kind of productivity or move around big files, Gen 5 is a massive help, and I think it's worth it. Where we're not wasting money is in RAM, because really, you only need 6,000 MHz RAM. But if you're into tweaking your stuff, you probably should get 6400 MHz stuff, because if you go ahead and undervolt your CPU and overclock your RAM, this is gonna allow you to get the FCLK slightly higher on your CPU and get a gain of around 10% free performance. So 6400 MHz, just XPG cheap stuff, it's gonna be perfect. Now we are cooling the 9800X3D with a cooler which costs 100 bucks, and it's a lot cheaper than what other builds on this price segment are doing. But this is simply the best cooler on the market. It's the Arctic liquid freezer free. If you're paying more for your cooler, you're paying for the aesthetics. And this also looks pretty cool. But this has the best fans on the market. It's very quiet, cools very well. Yes, it's a bit thick, but that's what you get for such good performance. Now for our RTX 5080, we saved quite a bit of money by getting a PNY model. A lot of 5080s are overpriced, and you should not buy like a ROG Astral 5080 for the price they're asking for, because it's just too much more. You're nearly in RTX 5090 territory there. But these are pretty cheap. You can buy one for MSRP. And I'm gonna do a separate review on this card, but shortly. Nvidia is now putting such strict limitations on their board partners that you literally cannot make a bad 5080. You're very controlled. So unless you have defective fans or you make a very big mistake, you cannot really make a bad one. So yes, it's gonna be a bit less flashy than other models, but it's gonna have the same performance. You can still overclock it. I'm gonna have a guide on how to do that, and it's gonna run the same as an Astral card, and you can buy it for 500 bucks cheaper. So get one of these, or any lower end brand is gonna be perfect. Where we are compensating in looks is gonna be with the rest of our stuff, what I have on this side of the table. So I've gotten this LC Power Gaming 8100W, and it's called Pro Storm Light case. Now this is an aquarium-like case, pretty standard, but we're getting all of their white fans, and LC Power is making such good cases for so cheap, and they're also innovating a bit more than main brands, which are kind of boring me, like Corsair is boring me a little bit. And I think this is more unique, and it's gonna get us a lot of space, and it's a well done aquarium-like case. But since we're getting an aquarium case, we can put this, and this is the Lian Li Edge 1000 power supply, and this is basically a PSU made specifically for aquarium-like cases, so that you have all the connectors right in front of you. Because I'm very excited about this. And to complete for the aesthetics, we got a custom set of Reaper cables. And now if you want to go really cheap, yes, there are cheaper alternatives like at DIY, from which we've gotten this angular adapter so that our GPU doesn't catch on fire, but no, really, it's for aesthetics also, and it also helps securing the GPU, so it's gonna be good for the connector problem. Getting a custom set of cables adds a lot, because nobody can have the same unless they customize them to be the same ones. So I think if you're buying such an expensive PC, a little bit of splurge on aesthetics, and we're talking about 50, 60 bucks, it's probably worth it. And with that said, I say we go ahead and get the whole thing built up, and then we start tweaking it and do some benchmarking. Let's go. Here we are with the build finally finished. Now, first of all, guys, you tell me if this doesn't look nice. I don't understand why nobody is talking about this LC Power case. It looks amazing, and I really like the curved glass, and it's something unique. Also, they are actually giving you quite a lot with their cases, because the case has an included fan controller with space for every other single fan, which you can slot in the case. And the controller also has an integrated RGB controller, and they give you a remote in case you don't want to use the addressable on your motherboard, but it's also compatible with your motherboard. Now, I went ahead and added a pack of steel fans from LC Power, the same kind that you get in the case, just to maintain same looks. And they make them both in normal or reversed blade, just like Lee and other brands are doing. They give you a controller with each pack of 3, which you get, so you can get them for other builds as well. And they're not that expensive. They actually are on the lower end of pricing. The case is as well. Now, something else which I think is way too cheap for the performance, like genuinely, I don't understand how Arctic is doing it, is the cooler. So this is one of the best coolers on the market for absolute performance. I'm not talking about relative performance, like not performance compared to price, just performance. It's one of the best performance out there, and it costs less than 100 bucks as I'm speaking, and literally it's one of the easiest ones to mount into your case as well. It is a little bit thicker, okay, so you need space on top, and with some cases you're gonna have issues, but with a normal case you're gonna have 0 issues. Just very cramped PCs, you may encounter some, but even there, if you really push it, you can make it fit. And it comes with fans pre-assembled in outtake, because every single one of you should be using your all-in-one as outtake. If you get it for an Intel build, you get a contact frame so you can straighten up CPUs, and if you get it for a Ryzen, it has an out-of-the-box offset mounting, which gets the exact offset spot of AMD Ryzen CPUs. I tested this, and the CPU doesn't get warm at all. Like, it was running so cool, I had to triple check that it was actually on 100% load. I never saw it reach 80 degrees, even under fully synthetic Prime 95 load for 4 hours. It was still under 80 degrees with power limits unlocked. Now, little disclaimer, for all of the gaming testing and all the performance testing of this build, I have actually run it with the CPU undervolted, with the GPU undervolted, with the RAM overclocked, and with the FCLK tuned, because this is how you should run a PC like this, and if you don't, you're leaving performance on the table. So if you want to see reference numbers for RTX 5080 or 1900X3D, there are the launch reviews from a lot of guys. Here I'm trying to show something different, so what you can achieve if you're willing to spend like 20 minutes changing your settings. After the undervolt, this thing was running even cooler. We fully unlocked the TDP, so it could run as high as we wanted to, because again, we got a very good motherboard, the Asus ROG Strix. We have higher speed RAM, which is crucial It's not from crucial, but it's crucial if we want to get the right FCLK on this Ryzen to get a little bit extra performance. So the XPG RAM at 6400 MHz was perfect. I'm actually running it at 6200 because it goes synced up with the FCLK of 2066. And I went ahead and spent the time to undervolt my RTX 5080. Now, when this video is gonna come out, we will already have a full undervolting tutorial for this card. But little disclaimer, this is the first generation where I think good old overclocking also makes sense. And I will have very soon a tutorial for that one too. It's gonna be on the channel. I have separate playlists. And this PNY card, guys, I'm gonna make dedicated video for it because it was running just so well. I'm gonna show you the temperature that it was doing in Firestrike, which, by the way, the Firestrike came out insane. We were in the very top of the scores, quite a bit further ahead than the average. And it did that without the GPU getting warm at all. I mean, we're talking under 70 degrees, with side panel closed, and while also the CPU was getting stress tested. And the same can be said for actual in-game testing. Now again, if you want to see detailed benchmarks, this is not the video because this is build video, but I wanted to see like what I would use this PC for personally. So I tested Warzone competitively and it was just locking out at 300 FPS. So you can play very high refresh rate 1080p gaming, or you can play easily 1440p 240 Hz gaming in Warzone, which is crazy because Warzone is heavy, it's not regular Call of Duty. And I also tested Apex Legends and it was maxing out at 300 FPS. At 1440p, guys, what you're seeing is 1440p and it's just locked. And it's native, no DLSS, no upscaling, nothing. This is just how fast an overclocked, undervolted 5080 can be if paired with an undervolt, overclocked 9900X3D. This is the gaming combo to get, are this CPU with this GPU at the moment on the high end. They're just that good. And of course, if you get a good motherboard and a power supply which is going to deliver stable power with low ripple, you can get a lot out of overclocking. Again, most important things for overclocking are cooling and your power supply. And your motherboard, especially for your RAM. So the Asus motherboard, yes, it looks cool. You have the cool heatsink saying, for those who dare ROG. There's a lot of connectivity, but the reason why I got it is because I wanted to go ahead and do some proper tuning. So it's probably not really worth all the money that it costs, but it can be at least justified. Now, talking about the power supply, this Linear Li Edge PSU is finally something new. So I came into it expecting that it was a cooler looking power supply made for aquarium cases because, as you can see, it's angular, but it turns out not only is it very handy if you want to connect stuff while it's inside an aquarium-like case, because it must have happened to me at least 100 times that I want to go ahead and change a connector on my PSU because, for example, I add a SATA controller and I forget the SATA and I have to take off the PSU, undo my cable management just to plug one extra cable. But here, all the connectors are there. You can just plug it or unplug it, whatever you want. But more importantly, they give you, included with the packaging, a fan hub, which is also a USB hub with all the cabling to connect it straight to the motherboard or even off the back of the case and into the back of the motherboard if you don't want to occupy your USB 2.0 slots, which is super handy if you're using Linear Li stuff because Linear Li fans and every single, for example, LCD screen, all those things from NZXT height, they all have internal USBs. Even though you may think it's crazy, it has happened to me a lot to finish up all the USBs on the motherboard, the internal USBs, not the one on the back. And I had to buy a USB hub. So here we have that integrated and it has a very cool slot-in feature, but what's really cool is you can also use this controller on a different PC. Like you don't have to plug it with this PSU. That's really cool. And also the cables, like I was ready to use those. It was just ready. I also wanted to use the angular adapters from SDIY, which I think are really cool and they make the build look unique. But it turns out the included cables with the Linear Li PSU, the sleeved ones, they are so good that I thought about it and I was like, wait, why would I put sleeved cables and the angular adapter on when it looks already so nice? The internal of the 12 volt high power connector is blue. It's really cool. The connector sits in just firm so that it doesn't burn your PC. So there was no point at all in getting something else. So we'll use those Reaper cables in another build because these are better than the Linear Li ones. But those are some of the best cables I've seen out of the box on a power supply. And also, since the LC Power case has all white connectors, white cabling, with also just slight sleeve on the cables as well, the white was just looking too nice. Take it off. So we went with the stock one, which means we can save another probably $60 out of our budget. So for those of you who thought that I said in the intro okay, if you spend this money, you can spend an extra $50 on aesthetics. Apparently, you don't even have to in this case, because you can just go ahead with stock cables. Now, just a short word on the NVMe, because this is also something I got a lot of questions about. Older gen T700 drives are still very good, and with this ROG heatsink, it's running cool and it's performing decent again. If you want the new gen drives, review just came out on my channel about what Team Group has been doing, which is crazy with the integrated fan. These are insane. So to wrap this up, this is how I would make 5080 build. I think this one came out very well, but as usual, you guys decide. And as usual on my channel, what I care about the most is the comments. So you guys let me know, first of all, if you like the build. And especially if you don't like a component, please tell me. And also tell me what you would have done differently. And if you want to see some specific build on the high end with new stuff, let me know and I can make it happen for you guys as soon as possible. I hope to see you guys again. If you watched the video this far, maybe subscribe, maybe you guys decide. And nothing, guys. Wish you a very good day. Bye bye.